Welcome back to the Garza Gaming channel. Today we have a Tiamat update. Not only am I going to talk to you about the various different attacks in her kit, but we're actually going to see small video clips on how those attacks actually play out. Now I'm going to tell you right now that Tiamat is going to be a beast in Arena. I've never seen a god in Smite with so many different mechanics and so many different type of attacks in their kit. But I can tell you, since Tiamat is like, I guess, the mother of all creation or creatures or serpents or what have you, you can tell that a lot of her mechanics are pretty much based on a lot of the current gods in Smite. And you're going to see that as we go along. But hey, man, is Tiamat going to live up to her hype, or is she going to be a dud? I don't know, but we're about to find out. Let's get into it. Okay, so here we go with Tiamat. Now we have a lot to cover, so let's get started. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to talk about is Tiamat's death begets life. So while in flying stance, Tiamat actually gains health from nearby allies and enemies that die, but she gets less damage or less health from minions or smaller minions, right? In ground stance, she actually gains up to 5 hardened scales, damage mitigation that breaks after a certain amount of damage is taken, and normally minions don't provide hardened scales. So what this ends up doing is, for when an enemy dies or an ally dies around you, or probably one of the big minions too, you actually get a large heal, which is 40 plus 8 hit points per level. So 40 plus 8 per level hit points that you gain from that. And the small heals from minions, you're probably going to end up getting like 5 hit points plus 0.5 per your level. So you get a large heal for the gods and for any type of gods, whether it be ally or actually enemy gods, and the big minions, that they'll walk out, and maybe even also the big minions that give the buffs. But the small minions are only going to get that small heal. Now the scale mitigation in ground stance, when she actually gains these hardened scales, when they're active actually mitigate 60% damage. But they kind of work like mini shields, and what ends up happening is each scale has 50 hit points plus an additional 10 hit points per your level. So once you do that amount of damage to the scale, it actually dissolves. So if you have 5 scales on you, obviously you're gonna have to multiply 5 times 50 plus each level, and that's how much total with a completion of all 5 for scales you're gonna have to knock down. So it's like having mini shields. So that's pretty huge, man. That's gonna make her very, very, very tanky. So let's move on. Her next ability that she has is called Primordial Onslaught. So Tiamat gathers power, allowing her to fire orbs of energy at the end of the channel. So she does a big channel, and then she just guns a bunch of orbs. So each orb that damages the enemy and stops at each god. So what ends up happening is these orbs, it's like a machine gun. She charges up like Oleron, and she just goes do 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 do, almost like an on-her type of ult. But these orbs don't go through enemies. They stop at whatever god they hit. So the point of impact. Hitting the same enemy deals 15 less damage each time, to a minimum of 70% reduction. This ability can fire additional projectiles at rank 3 and 5. So what ends up happening is the more of these individual orbs that you hit one individual target, for each orbs you're going to be doing less damage. And it sounds like when you first start out with this level, when you start out in level with this ability, the more or the higher rank you get, the more orbs you're going to be able to shoot out. So the damage for this is going to be 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100, plus 30% of your magical power. So that's not bad, with a cooldown of 10 seconds. So that looks like it's going to be up pretty quick. So if you add in there any type of cooldown reduction. So let's see what this ability actually looks like in real life. Okay, so this is almost like an all-around type attack. You have to charge it up and then let it go and shoot, multiple balls. But if you look over your profile, you see how there's two blue lit up spikes. So that means that you're at the lower level, you only can shoot two orbs. You also see them light up how many orbs you can shoot on your back when you actually are charging up. Now we're at the second level, now you can shoot four orbs, as you can see. And then once you level up to max level, obviously you'll have all of them filled in. That means you can shoot six orbs in conjunction with each other. Now keep in mind that if you keep hitting the same target over and over, it does less damage per orb. And depending on how long you charge, how many spikes light up on your back, that's how many orbs you're actually going to shoot out. So you probably want to end up doing this strafing left to right like a big machine gun. So just you charge up, pick a target and just strafe over like a machine gun, man. This thing is just freaking OP. So was that crazy or what, man? That was like a machine gun. I'm telling you, it reminds me of an Oleron charge up with an on heart, like small alt. But let's move on. Ruination. So ruination. Tiamat creates an energy field dealing low damage to enemies in the entire area, and then a larger amount of in the inner area. So what ends up happening is Tiamat actually forms almost like a mixture between, I would say, a Mercury type attack and a Danzoboro type Saki attack, right? So she throws out this triangle of damage, and anybody that's caught in the middle of the triangle, instead of getting taunted, they get actually stunned, and does more good damage. And then anybody on the outer skirts, which is a little bit lighter, you can see the targeting triangle is a little darker in the center and a little lighter on the outside, just takes damage but doesn't get the stun. So the inner area of the field stuns, like we said, for a short duration. So the area damage does 40, 50, 70, 85, and 100, plus 30% on your magical power. So it does a little less damage on the outer skirts, like I said, the lighter color. And then the inner portion, where you actually get the stun, does 60, 95, 130, 165, and 200, plus 40% on your magical power. So that you're going to end up getting even more damage if you target that triangle around somebody. If you center it on somebody, it's going to do a lot more damage. Plus, you're going to get that 1 second stun. So, and obviously, the higher rank you get on this one, the less the cooldown is going to be on for it. So, Ruination. Let's check out this Ruination in live action. Okay, so when you see here the target, it's not a circle like it normally is. It's actually a triangle, but you can see the light purple on the outside is what it does less damage, where the dark purple, blue in the middle is where you get your most damage and the stun. So you see right there where you just did the outskirts, it did the low damage. In the middle, you get the little damage and the big damage in conjunction with the stun. And as you see here, you can hit multiple targets. So again, you try to center it up, boom, stun, damage. It's actually pretty cool. That's going to be really good for team fights. So one last time, you just line it up like that, and then boom, damage, stun. Man, that's a really awesome attack. So that was actually not a bad attack. I mean, it's pretty interesting. I can see that for chain CCs and for a little bit AOE. That's actually going to be pretty impressive. It's going to be pretty interesting to check out in Arena anyway. But let's move on. So grounding dive. So grounding dive is the attack, or a kind of an attack slash how you say, stance change, right? Almost like a Merlin stance change. So what ends up happening is Tiamat dives into the fight, landing on all fours, dealing damage as she lands, right? And switching into a ground stance. So this ability also provides Tiamat with one hardened skill. So what ends up happening is she's in flying stance, and then she leaps forward, almost like a Fenrir type Unchained type jump, and as soon as she lands, she gets that instant mitigation, right? That 60% mitigation, because she gets one hardened skill, so she's already going to be tanky from the get-go. So that's going to be pretty impressive. Now, she ends up doing 40 damage, 80 damage, 120, 160, or 200, plus 40% of your actual magic power on the actual initial land of that leap or that stance change, right? Like I said, it's almost like an Unchained from Fenrir. Now, with this, the cooldown is a lot higher, right? So it starts at 22, 20, 18, 16, and 14. So this, switching stances from Tiamat is going to be a lot slower than you would see from a older or definitely older or maybe a Merlin. Hey, Merlin's stances I believe are cooldowns are a lot shorter than that too. But hey, it is what it is, right? So let's check out this ground dive in action. Okay, so you're gonna see the targeting is about the size of a murky made you look. So you just line it up and then you just jump in like you do with like Fenrir Unchained. Boom, land damage, and then you see how you get that one scale from the actual jump in. So one more time, we're gonna line it up. Boom, you see that one scale over your profile. One more time, just line it up. Boom, just that easy. So as you can see, grounding dive is actually pretty beneficial for Tiamat because when she goes in there, she actually gets that initial shield that allow her, to get a situational awareness and go into the fight or get into melee type close range combat without getting bombarded right off the impact as soon as you land, right? So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool getting that little at least one shield or one scale on initial land. But let's move on. So, Child of Creation. So, what ends up happening is Tiamat is able to summon one of her children onto the battlefield. So, she has a choice. Tiamat, when she hits her ult, can actually summon one of three different creations or minions types, say. So, the first one is actually a serpent that travels down the lanes, acts as minions. So, what ends up happening is she throws down like a little puddle or that a summoning portal, I should say, and her own little type minions come out of it and they go down the lane just like you see the minions going back and forth from portal to portal. The second minion that she has is a Minotaur that she throws out. And this Minotaur actually works like Artemis's boar. What ends up happening is the Minotaur will actually sit there and stand guard until an enemy comes around it. And as soon as an enemy comes around him, he'll charge and actually do a 1 second stun and then start attacking people. So that's pretty cool. And then the third type minion is actual a storm that Tiamat can actually summon that she throws out there and actually chases enemies. Almost looks like a Kukulkan type whirlwind, but at the very end, it actually has a what's his name, Susano type ult where it has a knockup. So it's like a mixture between a Susano ult and a Kukulkan whirlwind. So that works out really good. So the serpents, like I said before, Tiamat places a pit of creation that which spawns, and serpents come out of it like minions, and they just travel down the lanes. Now the serpents actually do 10 damage plus 8% of your magic power. But the cool thing about it is they actually place a debuff on anything that they hit, which reduces damage. So it gives them a damage debuff of 10, 15, 20, 25, or 30% damage reduction. But the only thing about it is these minions only have 2 hit points. So a minion damage, so if a minion hits it, for every 3 hits from a small minion or a minion, it actually reduces their life by 1 hit point. Whereas obviously, if a god hits them, 2 hits or 1 hit of anything is going to end up killing them. So the cooldown on these is going to be 46, 42, 38, 34, and 30, which is a very long cooldown. Now, but the cool thing about these serpents too is keep in mind there's 3 waves that come out. So as long as that portal is open, for every 10 seconds, a new wave will start coming out of that portal. Now, the unique thing about this portal is that if you are an enemy and you can actually kill that portal and keep any more minions from coming out by actually standing on it. So it says enemies can also stand on the pit and destroy it early. So if you stand on it, it actually destroys it early. How long you have to stand on it, I don't know, but I guess we'll find out when it comes out, right? Okay, moving on. Like I said, the beast, or the summon the beast, the Minotaur. So like I said before, he charges and gives charge damage of 30, 45, 60, 75, and 90, plus 20% of your magical power. And then his basic attack does 15, 20, 25, 30, and 35, plus 50% of your magic power. So that's pretty cool. But the best part about it is he actually has a little bit more hit points than the little minion ones, right? The little minion serpents. So he actually has health of 250 hit points plus 100 hit points per your level. So, he can stand a little bit more of a beating. And then his lifespan, though, he only lasts 30 seconds. So the cooldown on him is also 46, 42, 38, 34, and 30. And you can only have one of these minions out at a time. You can't have multiple minions out at one time. So that's pretty cool. And like I said, he almost appears to look like a Artemis alt with a boar, where he'll actually stand guard, and when somebody gets within range, then it charges. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so then the other one was the Storm, right? So this one actually has initial damage of 30, 45, 60, 75, and 90 plus 30% of your magic power. And its lifetime is only 4 seconds. But it has a dot of zero point 0.4 hits. So it hits damage every zero point 0.4 seconds. So that's 10 ticks that it does in its life for its whole life of the actual attack. The cooldown on this one is actually 46, 42, 38, 34, and 30. So that's pretty cool. Now don't forget, this one actually does, like I said, when you throw this whirlwind out there, or the storm out there, right? It does like that Kukulkan whirlwind, so it's doing damage, and then at the end of its cycle, it does that Susano type alt knockup. So that's pretty cool. Now it didn't appear to look very big, and we'll see it here shortly, but it didn't look like it was as wide of an area effect as Kukulkan's alt. Oh, it's a whirlwind. But anyway, let's take a look at these minions live. Let's take a look at it. Okay, so the first we're going to talk about the serpents. You see the puddle that comes out there, and then they come out of that puddle. Now remember, there's going to be 3 waves that come out every 10 seconds. Now the thing about these minions is they'll keep on coming out, or they'll keep on marching until they get killed. Now obviously in arena they're going to get killed pretty quick. But yeah, they'll just keep on keeping on until they get taken out. Now the second minion is going to be that Minotaur. So the Minotaur can be a sentinel. You can put him on the corner, like right outside maybe your fountain or something to guard. And when an enemy gets close, he'll actually charge them just like that, boom, and give them a stun. So I mean that could be pretty beneficial, almost like a set type of attack, except for this Minotaur actually charges almost like Artemis's ult, her boar. So again, you put it in the vicinity, boom, charges, does a 1 second stun, and then he just keeps on swinging. Now remember, he has a lot more hit points than your other little minion serpents. So one last time, what we're going to do is going to put one over here so you can see the charge one more time. Remember, he charges, does a 1 second stun, and then he just swings. So yeah, that's pretty OP. Now the third one is the actual whirlwind storm attack. Now this is a mixture between a Kukulkan whirlwind and Susano alt. Now if you stick it out here in the middle of nowhere, it just stands in one place and dissipates. It doesn't do nothing. But what ends up happening is if it comes in close proximity to the enemy, it'll actually chase them down, do dot damage until it goes to dissipate, and then it shoots them up like a Susano alt. So as you can see here, it's going to curve in, get them into that dot, and boom, is going to end up shooting them up in the sky at the end. As you can see, man, these minions are pretty OP. I mean, and there's various different situations that you can use them in. So those are going to be very interesting to use in arena. I'm pretty sure that they're pretty good in the various other modes also, but I think that Minotaur, for sure, that Minotaur and that Storm in arena are going to be huge, dude. Very huge. Especially for team fights with that Storm is going to be, oh man. So the next attack in her kit is Consume. So Tiamat actually fires a cone dealing damage and slowing enemies hit. So I guess it has an enemy debuff. So minions, large minions, or buff holders hit under her certain threshold actually can get executed. So Tiamat can immediately consume her serpent, beast pets, and provide hardened skills. So in addition to being an execute to minions with this ability, you can also eat your serpents or your minions that you created and actually gain hardened scales from them. So that's pretty cool. And then Tiamat consumes a buff holder. She actually gains the buff while the original one can still fall to the ground. So what that means is, like, in the beginning of the game, how you go to the side and you have that mana, attack power, and attack speed buff. Well, with her, once that minion gets down to a certain threshold, she can actually consume them and actually get the buff but the buff will still fall on the ground. So one of your teammates can get the buff. So you're actually getting two buffs for the price of one. But the best part about it is, say I go and get the mana buff, right? Consume the mana buff, and the mana buff drops, and another player gets it. I can actually go to the power buff now, kill that minion, and pick up the power buff and have two buffs. Have the mana buff plus the power buff. Now that is going to be OP, dude. I got to see how that's going to work out. That's going to be seriously OP. You know what? Let's see this consume in action. Okay, as you can see, it's a cone type attack where it doesn't damage, but it also does a slow for 1.5 seconds. And you can see it by the little swirly thing under them. Now, when you go to the minions, don't forget that you can attack the minions, and when you use this, you're going to see like this little star glowing in their chest. Once you see that star, like right there, that bristle, you can actually execute them. So it automatically can kill minions. Now, when you do this with a minion that actually has a buff, this is where it gets interesting. So you beat on the minion until you see that prickly star come up in their chest, and then you use the execute, and what it does, it actually sucks in their buff. So you actually get their buff, but it also drops a buff on the ground so one of your team members can use it. So that is going to be huge in Arena. But here's the best part. Then you go and find you another minion that has another buff, but this time you kill it regularly. Now, you can still execute it, but it's not going to suck up another buff because you're actually using the buff that you sucked up from the last one, but you can actually pick up a normal buff. So now you have two buffs on you. So that's going to be huge. There's not another god in Smite that has this. Now, another cool thing is that you can actually eat your minions, and you see how over my profile how I got those scales. For every minion you eat, you actually get a scale. So with two waves of minions, you can pretty much fill up all your scales to have some seriously high mitigation. So that is going to be awesome. Man, I told you, man, as you can see, that is a huge benefit to playing this character, especially in Arena, man. So that's gonna be pretty interesting. I can see a pretty good nerf coming, man, because that's pretty I think that's pretty OP. But let's move on. Okay, so Outburst. Tiamat slams the ground, creating a systemic rift that erupts in succession in front of her, damaging and knocking up enemies they hit. So pretty much what this is sounds like it's like a Hercules, right? Where he hits the ground, does the ripple, and does the knockback, but without the knockback. So it's going to be like a Hercules style type attack, but without the knockback hit. So the damage does 50, 80, 110, 140, and 170 plus 50% of your magic power, which is not bad at all, actually. That's pretty substantial damage there. Now the cooldown is pretty quick with 14, 13, 12, 11, and 10, and that's before any type of magic cooldown reduction. But you know what? Let's take a look at this outburst. Okay, so you see this. This is almost going to be like a Hercules type attack, but without the knockup. You just line it up, and you're going to see the ripple attack go in, boom, 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 bam. So you see one more time, just line it up, and it can hit multiple targets. One more time. The only thing is you don't have that knockup like Hercules. See, like I told you, man, it looks pretty much like a Hercules type attack, but without that knockback. So that's pretty cool. That's definitely pretty cool. Okay, so Rising Flight. So Rising Flight, what ends up happening is Tiamat jumps back on her rears, sending up out a blast of energy, right? Dealing damage to enemies and sending herself backwards as she returns to flight stance. So it's pretty much her going from ground stance back to flight stance. But the funny part about this is it's almost a mixture between, I would say, a Nemesis type of blade attack, or maybe even a how I can say a Nemesis attack mixed with more like a Vulcan type backfire attack, right? Because what ends up happening is she does that fan damage, but then she has that jump back. So it's a kind of like a blend of the two. So that's pretty interesting for sure. Now, the damage on this one actually does 40, 80, 120, 160, and 200, plus 40% of her magic power. So that is going to be a powerful attack, to tell you the truth, for what you're doing, right? So you're doing that attack and jumping back like a Vulcan backfire. So that's going to be pretty cool. Now, the cooldown from this one is 22, 20, 118, 116, and 114. And it sounds like both stances are pretty much the same cooldown wise. So you're definitely not going to get any type of instant, like a older type stance changes. More like a longer Merlin type stance changes. But I mean, with as much attacks in her kit, I don't think this is going to be an issue, to tell you the truth. But you know what? Let's take a look at this Rising Flight in action. So Rising Flag is pretty much like I said, like a Nemesis and attack fan attack with a Vulcan backfire. So you see here, you just put down the fan, boom, backfire. So we'll show it one more time. Like I said, it's pretty simple. There's nothing complex to it, but it looks like it's going to be an awesome escape. You know, just put that fan down, boom, backfire. As you see, I'm telling you, it's almost like a Nemesis type mixed with a Vulcan type attack. I mean, it looks like it's going to be pretty cool, man. It's for sure, pretty cool. It almost looks like you could actually use it as a kind of an escape in a sense. So, you know, we'll see what happens with that. Okay, so then the last attack that we want to talk about is Tempest of Undoing, right? So what ends up happening with this is Tiamat causes a celestial outburst around her, dealing initial damage and then damage over time effect to every enemy within the radius of this attack. So Tiamat also gains one hardened scale per enemy that she hits. So this attack almost reminds me of a Ratataskar tailspin, right? So it has a very wide area and she spins around and does damage to every god she hits, and at the same time gains those small shields or hardened scales from each god that she hits. So that looks like that's going to be a pretty OP attack. So the damage from this one does 60, 90, 120, 150, and 180 plus 30% of your magic power. Does burn damage of 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 plus 5% of your magic power every 0.5 seconds. So it sounds like it is going to hit you with initial damage, and then you're going to have a small dot. And the dot is for 4 ticks or last 6 seconds. So that's pretty cool, man. That's definitely pretty cool. Now, the cooldown for this one is a little long at 20 seconds, and that's before any cooldown reduction. So, hey, let's check out this Tempest Undoing in action. Now keep in mind, Tempest Undoing is the ult in ground stance. So you're going to be in ground stance, hit 4 or your ult, and then you can see the AoE is the size of Ratataskar's tailspin. So when you go ahead and hit it, you do that tailspin, you hit all the enemies that are around you, doing instant damage, plus giving them that dot. But if you look over the profile, you also get a scale for every enemy that you hit. So this attack is just freaking awesome, because you jump in, you do the tailspin, you get the instant damage, you get the dot, and then you get the mitigation, so you can start doing some serious melee type attacks. I'm telling you, this attack right here is definitely going to be OP in Arena. Just like I said, man, it almost looks like a Ratataskar type tail swipe, I should say, but with initial damage and then that dot damage. But hey, you know, that is Tiamat. So what do you think? Do you think that she's going to be way OP and is going to end up getting that nerf bat super quick? Or do you think that she's going to be, you know, pretty much on par with everybody else and she won't get nerfed that quick? I personally think that she's going to be OP in Arena. Just with being able to hold two buffs is going to be awesome. But man, those stance changes and all the various different mechanics, I think that she's going to be very fun to play for sure in Arena. And she's going to be a blast. But I do think that she's going to end up coming out a little bit too OP, and she's going to end up getting nerfed pretty much like any god, man. We saw it with Thulu, we saw it with the Baron, we saw it with Merlin, we saw it with Danzo. I mean, you know, it is what it is. But hey, you know, we're definitely going to enjoy it while it lasts, right? So hey, that's Tiamat. Hey, tell me what you think, man. Put it down here in the comments down below. You know, are you looking forward for Tiamat? And what's your favorite attack? Or what part of her kit, I should say. You know, what are you looking forward the most to seeing from this god? I personally I think that I'm very much wanting to see how she feels in range. You know, I'm glad that they made her a melee and a range type character, because, you know, I hate playing melee type characters. I really do not like playing melee type characters. Well, a select few I can play really well, but realistically, I feel more at home with range type characters. And the fact that she can play close hold and range, it just makes her freaking phenomenal in my book. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And then having those minions, I think is a really cool touch. So yeah, so that's another thing I'm really looking forward to checking out the various different minion combos, you know, with her flight stance type attacks. But hey, man, again, that's Tiamat. Hopefully she'll come out here next week. As soon as she hits the PTS, we're gonna get some real life gameplay. So make sure you have you make sure you're subscribed and have those notifications turned on, because as soon as I'm able to get that video done, I'll have it up for you guys to see her in action, real life in arena. I'm anticipating her being able to be played next week, or at least me being able to make a video on her actual live gameplay next week. But we'll see what happens. I still haven't seen any announcement on when they're actually going to let us into the PTS server. But again, hey, that's Tiamat. If you're new to our channel, don't forget we have over 200 videos on our channel. I put a new link in the description of our video where you can just go click on that link and it takes you directly to our video library, so you can binge on all of our videos, man. Hey, and don't forget, man, we're trying to get to that 2,000 subscriber mark, and we're almost there. We only need like a handful more of subscribers. So hey, if you're enjoying our videos and haven't subscribed yet, hey man, help us out. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, okay? So again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I'm Dark Garza, Yo G on the GC. See you next time.